Good evening, everyone. Ted here with the DroppedMic show. Tonight is episode 5, and as many of you guys know, our country is, I guess the world, has been brought to its knees the past few days since the death of George Floyd. People are protesting systemic racism and police brutality. And tonight I'm joined with a panel of young professionals to discuss and address this issue and give you guys a platform to also call in, share your opinion, as well as ask any questions that you may be having at this moment. It's about time we address this issue on this show, and tonight we're giving you guys this opportunity. Welcome to DroppedMic.
I can't breathe.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
With me tonight is, as I've mentioned, and as you guys already know, is a group of young professionals. And as usual, I will allow them to introduce themselves, tell us where they're from, where they live, and what they're up to. I'll begin with you, Ivan.
Oh. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Ivan Latouche. I was born and raised in New York. I'm currently living in Dallas, Texas. What I've been up to. I am currently practicing business immigration law here in Richardson, Texas. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll go over to Max.
Hey everybody, my name is Max Sejour. I am a photographer, a content creator, and filmmaker living here in the Atlanta, Georgia area.
Thank you, Max. And I must say that Max is a familiar face. Thank you for joining us again, Max. And we'll go over to you, Rose.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rose Pierre from Connecticut. I currently work in education, tech, and finance. So it's a pleasure to be here tonight.
Thank you, Rose, and thank you for being here. And I'll go over to you, Juliette, another familiar face.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you guys all again. I am Juliette Nelson. I am a business alliance specialist for a government agency. I am also an entrepreneur and educator. I'm also a choir director. And most of all, I am Black. Nice to meet y'all.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. And we'll go to you, Veronique.
Well, hey everybody, my name is Veronique Esther, founder and creator of Authentically Wed. I'm also a licensed master social worker and a believer, Black woman as well, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, we have Raymond.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Raymond Adams. I live in New York City. I am a operations and sales associate, and I am also a part of the Black Men Don't Cheat movement.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being with us tonight. And without any further delay, let's jump right in. I have a few questions for you guys to get the conversation started. So I'm pretty sure that some of you guys, if not all of you guys, have heard or watched the video that young lady Candace Owens posted online. I saw it this week. And in the video, she mentioned George Floyd's past, I guess criminal past. She also mentioned that he once broke into someone's house, a pregnant lady, and he beat her up, at gunpoint. Held her at gunpoint, I guess. And now that he's dead, right? She believes that we're glorifying a criminal. I would like to hear from everyone. And the question is, do you guys believe, or I guess do you guys think bringing up someone's troubled past justifies the fact that we should not be talking about them or be outraged about the situation? I'll start with you, Ivan.
See, I always have a problem with the bringing up of someone's past. I feel like it's a part of the, they're trying to change the narrative, right? And make this person seem more violent than they actually are. And oftentimes, I'm not going to say people of color because we're talking about Black people tonight. Black people are often villainized, right? Or we're seen as more violent. And I think it's rather frustrating for them to try and justify his death by way of his past, and that's just part of the idea of just trying to make this person seem like they deserved the death that them being murdered, actually. And what does his previous actions have to do with what happened that day? You know what I mean? Like they're the two aren't connected. And I think that's just a part of that reoccurring narrative of trying to make Black people seem more aggressive, more violent, and therefore police officers or anybody in that kind of position have to use more aggression than they would on a normal human being.
Yeah. What do you think, Max?
Hold up a second. Let me see something here. Golly, I don't have a trash can. You know what? That's probably the best way to put it. Candace Owens is a sister, although many have canceled her this week, that I've been following for a while. Because for me, I like to kind of be aware of every different groups and what they're saying, what they're talking about. Because if you're vocal about these things, you want to know both sides. And you don't want to just attack someone without knowing where they stand, knowing the history, knowing what they're talking about. So I've made sure to follow Candace Owens for a while now. Golly, it's hard. This sister is something like who hurt you, sis? Like, what happened? As of 2015, if you guys look up her history, in 2015, she was speaking up against Trump before him becoming president. And a series of things happened. She joined one of those groups, and all of a sudden, she is all the way on the opposite side. So it's a shame that she picks up the narrative that they like to put out there to hurt our community. Because when it comes to our people, we are always judged by our lowest common denominator. They always pick the harsh, the worst thing, the worst person, the worst everything, and they judge us by that standard. Now, when it comes to the opposite side, for example, when you talk about the Caucasian community or even the police, which is the main topic at hand this week, no one ever says, hey, look, there's a few bad cops, and I think there's a little bit more than a few bad cops. There's a lot of good ones, too. I know some good ones. But all the bad ones, the police force is never judged on the bad police. Now think about this for a second. This week, the two main issues are race inequality and police brutality. If you turn on the TV anytime this week, you're going to see the police force everywhere beating the stuff out of people live on TV. Yet they're still not judged based on those number of people. So when it comes to George Floyd and his past case, that's got nothing to do with anything. That's a non-starter, and she shouldn't even bring it up. And they, like I said, they love to do that to give people a reason, give people who want to feel safe saying they're not racist. They have a safe reason to say, okay, well, I'm against this person because he's not one of you good Black people. Get out of here. Trash.
All right, so I'll hear from you, Rose.
I think I agree with Evan and Max. And if you look at the history of this country, something that always bothers me is really the criminalization of Black people and Black bodies, right? For Sister Candace, that's a pass for me. But the reality is, if you've seen the many videos that we've had the chances of seeing online on social media, you've always seen that for some reason or whatever reason, the media has always found a way to criminalize us for the racism and for being murdered, or it's either that you were a drug addict, you deserve to be shot, or you were selling cigarette by the corner store, you deserve to be shot, or it's either that you appeared to be a criminal, you deserve to be shot. or whatever reason that someone invented some type of fear, and for whatever fear that they're projecting, so Black bodies have to pay for it. And when it comes to Candace, I don't know why she has so much internalized racism. That's something that she's going to have to deal with. But this is not something that I dwell on, whether someone's past, checkered past, is warranted for getting murdered or getting a knee on your neck until you can't breathe anymore. So my piece is, she needs to find whatever it is, whatever that painful memory, whatever it may be, that she deals with it. But when it comes to the media, it's the same. Our past does not warrant for us to get murdered.
Thank you. And for my three people at the bottom, so she also mentioned something else. She said that we're the only community in America who gets up and defend the bottom denominator of society, right? The criminals, thugs, and things of that nature. Because she said someone, referring to the lady that was beat up by George Floyd, right? She said, this woman is having to sit home and watch this guy's face being painted all over the news, on t-shirts, and things of that nature. Do you guys believe that it's okay, or is this justified? I'll start with you, Raymond.
So she's saying that this is his karma, basically, for the crimes that he did in the past. That's what it sounds like. And to me, that's not fair. That doesn't warrant anyone getting a knee in their neck when you're literally seeing them, their veins popping, saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. This sounds like a all lives versus Black lives kind of issue. And honestly, to Candace, no matter how much you may try to be amongst white people, you're not going to be white. You're still going to be Black. And you'll forever be Black until the day you die. So I don't agree with her actions. I'm not excusing his actions, though, because he did those crimes. But I don't think that it's fair that if a Black person dies, their entire rap sheet comes up. But then if a white person passes, they make them out to be like the victim. Like, I remember when the Vegas shooting happened, and they made the shooter seem like, oh, he was just this disgruntled child, and he had all these rough, traumatic childhood experiences, and they kind of excused it. No, I don't believe in that at all.
All right, thank you. And what do you think, Vernique?
I'm really trying to not be over passionate about the situation. I wasn't aware of Candace Owen or who she is or what she said. But here's the thing that I've been wrestling with lately. And it's that people seem to think that if somehow us as Black people become total perfectionists and we don't do anything wrong, that somehow it'll keep white people and police from attacking, discriminating, and murdering us. And it's just not true. It's just not true. Everybody who gets killed by police, everybody who gets killed at the hands of a white person in a racially charged situation, it's not always that they committed a crime. I was recently reading a thread, which I really try not to do, where they were like, well, I'm just really like wondering, like, what did he do, in reference to George Floyd? What did he do in order to get attacked like that? First of all, there is nothing in the world that anyone can do to warrant laying on the ground. Matter of fact, I couldn't even watch the video, but just knowing, I have been in shambles since yesterday watching the memorial, and realizing, like, for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, 8 minutes and 46 seconds, someone's knee, someone who was hired by tax dollars to protect and serve this man, was on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And we're supposed to now be okay with that. There is not a planet. If he commits a crime, you cuff him, you subdue him, and then you take him away, and you allow due process to take proper action. You are not the judge, jury, and executioner just because you have a badge on you. And so my fact, behave enough for them. What was Jordan Davis doing when he was playing music, pulling up to a gas station when he got shot by a white man? What was Trayvon Martin doing when he was walking down his own street with his own things, didn't steal anything, on the way to his home? What was Sandra Bland doing as a professor in the university when she was wrongfully arrested and taken to jail, where she later died, which we can pretty much assume the end, right? What were they doing? People seem to think that George Floyd is an isolated incident, and it's not. We have been crying for the last God knows how many years, decades. We've been crying out and nobody heard us. And so now in this situation, you're trying to attribute it to another one. Like, if he needed to be prosecuted and arrested for that situation, they should have got him then. That wasn't this. There was no correlation whatsoever. And so this idea that we people like won't behave enough, will never perform enough, will never be human enough, will never be anything enough for people to see us in a way that we shouldn't be killed. If that was a white man laying on the ground, people would have had a hell of a lot of questions. And that it just pisses me off. Like, if it was me, they would try and find who doesn't have anything in their past. They would try and find the most minute things. Like, well, you know, she was this, as passionately as I'm speaking now, she was always very loud. Maybe an attitude at the cop that made her. There is nothing that you can sit still for 8 minutes and let me know how you would feel if you were on the ground with a knee to your neck for that amount, and if you believe that you should have died, no matter what you did.
Very good point. And what about you, Juliette?
I first want to validate that woman, whoever she is, because the reality is, probably in her shoes, she doesn't see George Floyd the way everyone else sees him, right? You know, he's a victim. However, my issue is that he was not, first and foremost, he was not apprehended by police because of that. The police were called, and if they were, then, you know, we don't know. We won't ever know at this point. The situation was a counterfeit, and we don't even know if it was a counterfeit, a possibly counterfeit $20 bill. And so if, you know, I forget his name, Dylan Roof, who shot 9 people praying in a church, he was taken to Burger King peacefully with dignity, and he gets to sit in jail and possibly reflect on what he did wrong, right? When someone commits a crime, right, at least they should have that. They need to be able to go through the process of being told that they did something wrong and either atoning for their crimes or paying for it or being held accountable. The fact that the issue was a $20 bill, he didn't deserve to die over a $20 bill. And he didn't even get to be arrested, okay, the way they usually do, with dignity, right, taken to the court. And where maybe they could have pulled up his rap sheet and say, by the way, you did this, that, and third to a pregnant woman, so we're pressing these charges against you too. He didn't even get that much. And so to wait until after he dies to say, oh, by the way, the cop is justified in his death because of this past, it makes absolutely no sense to me. It makes absolutely no sense. Because even according to the Constitution, you're innocent until you're proven guilty, right? And so you never even gave the man a chance to be held accountable for whatever he's doing. Don't wait until he's dead, right? And he's been lynched publicly in broad daylight. Don't wait until then for you to start bringing up rap sheets, right? If they fail to hold him accountable, and once again, I am not condoning it, I don't even know where she or may not have gotten that information from, but don't wait until the man is dead and has been unjustly murdered for you to bring up all of that stuff, especially if they weren't even planning on giving him the dignity and integrity as a human being to be held accountable, whether it was for a $20 bill or for whatever crime he committed. And of course, my thoughts on Candace, I've heard about her. I didn't watch her video. I think, honestly, it's another way of Blacks being pit against each other. I hate hearing the black on black crime. But one thing I've realized is that when white slave masters, came up with this system of turning Blacks against each other, inspired by the William Lynch letter, what I've also noticed is what that looks like in present day, especially among professionals like Candace, who's supposed to be educated and sound. It looks like white people who feel comfortable turning a Black person against their own. I looked in the comments. Once again, I didn't see the video. I just saw some of the comments, and you see white people who are glorifying her. And it's almost like this is a continued system of her maybe getting some kind of bait or being used as a pawn by white people. And instead of them trying to facilitate healing, it's, hey, let's dig up whatever we can on George Floyd in the past, use a Black woman, right? Because of course, Black Lives Matter. But if a Black person says it, maybe it won't be as bad. And then turn that Black woman against everybody else. So that's just my take on it. They really, if that's the crime he committed, he should also be he should have been held accountable for it, but within his human dignity. And don't wait until he was unjustly murdered to justify, bring up that past and justify how he was died. And once again, Candace needs to understand that she's also being used as a pawn in this. She's being used as a tool to be turned against her own people. So.
Oh, very good point, guys. So I have a question for you, Yvan. So someone said that as Black people, we only hate oppression when we're being subjected to it. Do you think that's true?
We only hate oppression when we're being subjected to it. That's an interesting statement. We only hate oppression when we're being subjected to it. I don't find that to be true, right? Because I feel like when other groups are experiencing oppression, we're like someone on the front line. Like when, for example, LGBT groups are experiencing oppression, we're still representing. Yeah. When women are experiencing oppression, we're still there. When, let's see, other cultures or other age groups are experiencing oppression, we're still present. Well, and I think partially because we're still a part of those groups that are, we're like within the groups that are experiencing oppression as well. And because we know the gravity of what it means to be oppressed and systematically disadvantaged. So I definitely don't agree, because I feel like we are at the front line. I have heard many arguments as to which groups of Black people are at the front line, I think, which is another conversation in itself. But because we've fallen victim to it, then we know what it feels like. I feel like what would have to be like, now you get what I'm going through. Now you kind of understand. Now you're kind of walking in my shoes. So I don't agree with that at all.
Okay. And I have another question I'll go to Raymond right now. So Raymond, do you believe that we have a justification for rioting?
That's a tough one. Only because people express pain in different ways, and people express frustration in different ways. However, when small businesses are affected by it, when people's livelihoods are affected by it, when people make investments and some investments aren't able to be returned to them, it's a thin line. So I say rioting it's okay, but when it turns into looting, when it turns into vandalism, when it turns into burning buildings within our community, which really just makes it terrible, then no.
Okay. Anyone else want to add?
Can I say something?
I want to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
so
Brittany.
two things. To the point that was made previously, and then to the next one. So I think that it's just an unfair question to even ask, like, if we are, and not to, you know, you asking the question, but just the question being asked to us. If I am bleeding and somebody else starts bleeding, I feel like I have to make sure that I stop bleeding before I can jump in somebody else's fight. And so this idea that minorities have to jump in the fight for other minorities, though it's altruistic in nature, and yes, we get it, right? Like when kids were being locked up in cages, undocumented Latino boys and girls were locked up in cages, we were upset, right? We felt some kind of way about it, especially for those of us on this live who are either first generation or immigrants ourselves. And so we felt some kind of way, but just this idea that we, the oppressed, have to also now stand up for the other oppressed while we're still being oppressed is like, it's overwhelming. And just this, I like moving to the looting and rioting thing. Though I am not a component of it, right? Though I don't think that it's the best solution, I think that what's not being understood here is the people who are rioting are not people like us, right? They're the people who have been on the outskirts. So us as professionals, as millennials, most of us are likely middle class. Like we experience oppression, right? We experience microaggression, maybe at work and different things. Maybe somebody's called you the N-word a time or two. But for people the people who are on the street are not us. There are people on the outskirts who are even more marginalized than us, who are tired of, you know, having lackluster education, who have been victims to redlining, which happened a few decades ago. They're victims to being in food deserts, and they were just in a quarantine, and they're exhausted and they're tired, and most of their family has likely died because people of color are dying from COVID-19 disproportionately. And so, like, all of these things, and then on top of that, so we're running from a pandemic and we can still get killed. Those are the people in the streets. They have nothing left to lose. So when people talk about, especially on my timeline, when they talk about like, what is rioting and looting gonna solve? You're preaching to the choir. We're not the ones out there. We're not the ones who are marginalized. I don't live in a food desert. You know, I don't wonder where my next meal is gonna come from. We have to acknowledge this. Like, it's even a privilege to be able to say like, well, what is that gonna solve? Because we have the appropriate channels or understanding on how to deal with those things. And so when we add that to the conversation and make it seem like, well, they're not going to listen to us if we start tearing down their stuff. As a matter of fact, I think it's not true, because what got the higher charge on the main police officer that killed George Floyd, plus the arrest of 3 other officers? It was outrage. When we hit their pockets, that's when they care. They want us to be silent, but when we're silent, they do nothing. It's easier to ignore us. But when people come in the streets and start tearing up your neighborhood and our neighborhood, then you want to do something because you recognize it's digging in your pockets, and you know that you care more about your money than you do our Black lives. And so while I do not condone it, I was talking to some friends earlier, and my friend said it perfectly. She said, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And right now, that's what's happening. We have to act outside of what they would expect, or maybe act exactly how they would expect in order for anything to happen. And that's what we're learning here.
I know you had something to say, Van.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to that. I'm Haitian American, and you know, I know there's some other Haitian Americans on this panel. Let me remind you all that our ancestors led the first slave rebellion, right? I had this conversation with another individual, and I do not condone violence. I do not. But once again, my ancestors led the first successful slave rebellion. Whatever problems Haiti had, that's a different conversation for another day. But what Haiti said is, listen, if anybody's oppressing anybody, we'll oppress ourselves. What you're not about to do is be the one to oppress us, right? Because in any community, there is conflict. So let me remind everybody of that one fact. Number two, let's talk about the American history that white people teach us about. The American Revolution, the Boston Tea Party, basically every football or soccer or hockey game that's won or lost, and then bonfires, as they're called. Bonfires, parades, celebrations happen, right? This is the history and the narrative that's fed to us, but it's done by white people, and it's justified. Now let me explain, that's two. I'm going to explain another thing. There's something called post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay. And I've taken a lot of time to study that. When you're undergoing post-traumatic stress disorder, what happens is you go into a series of maybe panic attacks or episodes, and you panic. You don't even know what you're scared of. You scream, you yell. And the reality is, it's almost like your brain or your body's on fire, right? You will destroy everything in sight. Now imagine being stabbed and stabbed and stabbed, stabbed and stabbed over and over and over again. At that point, that's not even post-traumatic stress disorder. It's just trauma, ongoing, recurring trauma. And we sit here and we say, please stop, it hurts. Please stop, it hurts. Please stop, it hurts. And then we give this country the same treatment, a little bit of the same medicine that they've been giving, right? But kind of glossing over, and then all of a sudden there are riots. All of a sudden it's destruction. The reality is you cannot traumatize people over and over and over and for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and then expect them to sit there and just peacefully, continually peacefully asking you to stop. And I'll address, I know we have Black businesses in our community that have been looted, that have been burned. I understand that. And I'm not one of those business owners that has a shop. So I don't want to be insensitive to those people. But sometimes you got to remind this country that it's Black slaves that built up this country. And if anybody's going to burn it down, it's going to be the people who built it up. And if we have to build it right back up, it'll take the same level of resilience, the same level of strength. The same way we built Black Wall Street is the same way we can put all this money together and build up every single Black business that was burned down. There are so many attorneys that I've seen that have come forward pro bono and said, I will represent any protester in my area, in my state that has been arrested. And everyone's donating to causes, donating to freedom funds, justice funds, and so on and so forth. The same way we can still support our own, take all those dollars that we've been giving, the descendants of our slave masters, take all those dollars and put it right back in those businesses and rebuild them right back up. Honestly, I don't think there is any wrong in you expressing your trauma. And if you are the person who stabbed me, you have no place in any shape or form to tell me how I'm supposed to bleed.
So, Rose, I have a question for you. So some of our woke brothers and sisters, right? Some of the woke brothers and sisters have mentioned the fact that
so I just
this happens every 4 years.
One thing.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So, I just wanted to add one thing to what Juliet was saying is that, so we have to somehow name some of the things that people are enraged and angry and tired, right? For hundreds of years, people are fighting poverty, right? Unemployment rate, housing discrimination, government surveillance, mass incarceration, housing discrimination, drug arrest. And this is not the list. This is just some of it. And for people to have the audacity of telling Black people or other minorities how to fight for this after years and years, centuries of abuse and slavery, this is just not it for me.
So I have a question for you, though. You know, some of our woke brothers and sisters have mentioned that this happens every 4 years, and it's an election strategy. Do you believe that this is true?
So this is a rather hard question, and for me, there's not a yes. I'm in between, to be honest with you, but let's not forget that we live in America, right? And it wouldn't be surprising to see such a thing, right? But at the same time, us as a people, we have to be strategic in terms of how we vote. And a lot of times we tend to vote towards the Democratic Party because we feel that they are better understanding, or their policies fit better for us, or we are benefiting from their policies or from their government. But I think this November, it needs to change, right? And it needs to start right now, today, tonight, and we can't stop it until find the answers that we need. Because we cannot just go and vote for Biden, right? So it needs to start in Dallas, right? It needs to start in Richardson. It needs to start in Norwalk. It needs to start in New York City, because what happens when it starts locally, then you'll get the answers that you need in Washington. So I think that we need to be more intelligent in terms of how we vote, and not just waiting for us to vote in November for who's going to be president, but we need to vote locally to make sure that our leaders, our local leaders, understand what is going on in our communities and are answering questions and providing solutions, so that our problems, our things that we are facing as Black people and other minorities are answered. But is it a political toy? I don't know. Some of us may never know. But I think that if we start locally, then we may have a way to start answering our own questions and get our communities to stand up and get the answers that we need.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I think that's definitely a great point, because one of the things that's very common that we see is a lot of people, they don't vote because they think that their vote doesn't matter. You know, a lot of people just use the excuse that the Electoral College will choose the president, therefore my vote doesn't matter. I'm just going to stay home and watch the results on TV, right? So let's talk about solutions now. And I have a question for you, Max and Ivan, if you both can give me an element of answer. So we're thinking about, well, we're asking for the police to be defunded, right? Because I went to the protest, and some of the things we were chanting was, defund the police and things like that. Do you guys think that this will help the cause? I'll start with you, Max.
Oh, okay. I just want to make one point before I get to that part. The last comment was about, did I hear that correctly? We have to make sure to not just vote for Biden. Is that what you said, Rose?
Yes, because so the reason I'm saying this, because for the most part, you see on social media, most of us are saying that we need to get Orange Head out of the White House. And now, given that Biden is a Democratic presumption, then, and it's unlikely for us as a people to vote otherwise, right? So then our thing is to ensuring that change doesn't start from Washington. It starts from your local communities. Ensuring that the people, your senators, your the mayors, the community leaders understand the types of community that they're serving, and then the change will funnel into Washington. Because if we have someone in District 63 that has nothing to do with us as a people, guess what they're going to do in Washington? They're not going to fight for us. They're never going to think about our,
No, but you said something about not voting for Biden or not going in to just vote for him, right? Is that what you said?
So, yes, in terms of Well, yes, we can vote for Biden, because if you're Democrat and this is where you're, lining up, yes, you can do that. But what I'm saying is making people understand that this vote is not the only important vote there, right?
Okay,
If this is where
yeah, I
you're
just want
going.
to. Yeah. Okay, because I just want to clarify it because at the end of the day, every, everybody go out there and vote this November and make sure you vote for Biden because yeah, we gotta change this. What's going on? Period. That's it. Just vote for Biden. All right, that's it. Now, yeah, the other part is because every time I hear somebody say your vote doesn't matter, so today's a perfect example. I'm sure a lot of you guys know that Mayor Muriel Bowser in D.C. She named the street after Black Lives Matter, and there's a whole Black Lives Matter written on the street real close to the White House. Now, if you don't have local representation, in other words, if you don't make sure you vote all the way from your local representative, your commissioner, sheriff, all these things, then you don't have your own people advocating for you. So voting is very important, and I want to make sure that everybody understand. At this point, we need to get behind Biden. We need to get behind him, vote, but it doesn't end there. You don't just vote and go to sleep. You have to keep the pressure up. I've been telling people this. A lot of us have been learning about the voting system because most of us really started voting around President Barack Obama. And so we're new to the voting system. So the way it works is we really need to start at the lower level, find our candidates, have an agenda. You make sure your candidate backs up that agenda. You fund your candidate. You make sure they get to the next level and higher level, get to the presidency, and at each step, you keep the pressure. You don't say, we got him in, and you go relax. You keep the pressure. You keep the list of demands, and you make sure that those demands are met. So I just want to make sure we cover that basis because that is very important. Now, as far as the police brutality situation, and Ted, remind me, and I'll be quick on that one. Remind me the question, and I'll give you a quick answer.
Solutions or concerns. Some people are saying that we should defund the police. Do you think that will help the cause?
That's ridiculous. That's a non-starter. That's like saying, take out the doors in your house, take off the alarm system, make sure you leave your car keys outside. Car keys, just put it on the hood of the car, leave it there. That's pretty much the equivalent of that. That doesn't make sense. That's not a thinking person's rationale. What we need to do is create laws. I heard something today about the 8-point laws or something that they're trying to add to the police stations or the police rules. What we need to do is structure the whole the police departments across America. Because as you can see, even this week, every time you turn on the TV, as a matter of fact, one of the cases that I saw, older gentleman, he was an elderly gentleman, he was a protester. Where was this? I just reposted that. Buffalo, New York. That's what it is. So the emergency response unit, they were walking through, they saw him, they pushed him to the ground. Now the same guy that pushed him to the ground sees the old man on the floor. He's about to pick him up, and another guy said, no, don't worry about him. Keep going. And this gentleman, elder gentleman, is bleeding on the floor. So no, we need mass reform of the board. We need stricter rules. We need their pensions, individual pensions, to be affected, and we need strict rules to say whenever you abuse your power, whenever you kill someone wasn't supposed to die, whenever you do something wrong, we will not only prosecute you, but we're going to take your pension. We're going to take all these things from you, because right now, when someone is in prison, falsely imprisoned, falsely incriminated, or anything like that, really, we, the taxpayer that pays for it, that it comes out of our taxes. It should affect the police unit funding altogether, and especially that individual person's police funds or that pension. That's the word. So no, we just need reform. You don't get rid of the police. That's not been an option.
Okay. And what do you think about that, Ivan?
Defund the police. I imagine that the idea behind this is to get them to act right? So if dollars are not going towards the police station, it's almost like a consequence because you guys are kind of mishandling policing overall. If we're not funding you, maybe you'll get your act right, and maybe you guys will start doing the right thing by people. But I feel like by doing so, that also may hurt us, as just said. They may just not care at all, and we might as well, like he said, take the hinges off the door, leave your cars unlocked, because if they may feel like it may kind of bounce back. They feel like they're not being supported, so why support people? But so that's one part, right? Now, I agree with Max's sentiment in, like, we need to restructure the entire police system. I feel like police systems across America, they all have this one idea, and they all kind of act the same way, which is, I don't know why I'm so surprised, but they all act irrationally, like at most police stations or police departments. I do think that there needs to be a restructuring. I do think we need to hit them where it hurts, pensions. But I don't even want to go. If we were to restructure the police department, I wouldn't even want to call it the police department. I think it would need a whole different name. But I think that what needs to happen is that we go in and harshly punish those who are kind of not acting accordingly. Restructure how people are to protect and serve, and we are actually to ask that they actually protect and serve, essentially. Give them a whole new name and go from there. But defunding, I feel like that may come back around to bite us in the butt, because I feel like in trying to get them to act right, they may be like, oh yeah, y'all going to get us act right, and they may kind of turn back and hurt. But I think we just need to restructure the entire police system.
Okay. And this question
I just
is
want
for,
to add, I'm sorry. I think we also need
go ahead, Julia.
a training system for police. I study industrial and organizational psychology. And the thing about it is, a lot of things we're just naturally conditioned to do, right? We run like robots almost. We come into work and we do, our day-to-day, and we go, 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 go. And the reality is, the issues are deeper than how much money is going to cops, right? The reality is, a lot of them, there's a thing in their head, this idea that, when I see a civilian and the civilian asks me, why are you pulling me over? All of a sudden, I need to feel threatened, right? I need to feel like my authority is threatened. And that takes a level of coaching. That also takes a level of training as well. So it goes beyond the defunding and so on and so forth. I saw a video, I believe it was like the San Francisco Police Department, and they had a conversation about diversity and inclusion and, racism. They showed the video of George Floyd dying, and, they had Black representatives from the community to really honestly say, this is how I feel when I see a cop, and I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to feel this threatened, especially if I'm just driving home, especially if I maybe just, drove past a stoplight or something like that. But that also takes a lot of training. That takes a conversation of, and not just one-time training, not the onboarding training that you sleep through for the first week. I'm talking recurring training, them having mentors, them having coaches, them knowing that, yes, if a civilian asks you, why are you pulling me over? That is within that right. And you do not get to feel threatened by that. And these are the situations in which you do pull out your guns. But before you do that, here are the different steps. And really allow them to go through this level of training so that they're better prepared. Because defunding is not going to get rid of the bad apples. We don't want to lose another person, another Black person, another minority, any other person. We don't want to lose another person because police took advantage of the oath that they swore to, the honor that they have to protect and serve the general public. So it's really a lot of training, a lot of coaching, and a lot of mentorship that's also needed to kind of reverse this thought of, superiority and authority that they have.
Okay.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
I also wanted to say that I think that there needs to be a structure between the police and the people. So I think that there should be like maybe every 3 months or something, where the police and the people, they come together and they have like discussions on what's going on in the community. How can we make things better? How can we better the relationship between the police and the community? Also, I think that the sergeants themselves, they need to get retrained like every 2 years or such, because a lot of times I personally feel as though like the sergeants, they have this big ego thing where it's like, okay, I'm a sergeant, so I can basically boss people around and things like that. And it starts from the top and you make your way down. So once you have that relationship between the community and the people, I think that it'll be better overall, and the people will have a more respect and a more trust and more communication when it comes to how cops and the people relate to each other.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go
Can I
ahead.
say something? And just to bounce off of that, I think it goes also back to the hiring process, because I feel like this whole idea of protecting and serving the community that you come from, oftentimes we see officers who, and I don't want to go ahead and say most officers who practice police brutality are from outside of that community, but you'll find officers who are trying to police in an urban community. It's like, you're not even from here. If you knew this person, you would know how to talk to them. If you knew, the community that you're serving, maybe you wouldn't act so abrasively. You know what I mean? So I feel like it also goes back to hiring. Let's start hiring police officers from within the community, because that relationship is important. If you know who you're dealing with and the kinds of people you're dealing with, then you wouldn't have to kind of, act out. And also, I think in that hiring process, there has to be a psychological background check done, because I feel like a lot of these police officers who are acting out, people often crack jokes that these police officers that are acting out in high school, you knew they got bullied, so this is them kind of like bullying back, or something just isn't clicking, or something's off, or they're awkward. I feel like we need to consider all of those elements, because those are a factor in how these people the first thing they do is go for their gun, or they get aggressive very quickly in a situation which can easily be de-escalated. So I think it does go back to like forming relationships, hiring within your community, and doing a psych eval, because I don't think it's irresponsible to give a gun and a badge to someone who is quick-tempered or isn't right in the head. So.
But then
And
let's
I
take it a
wanted,
step
I wanted to
further.
add something.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to
One
add
second,
something.
guys. 1 second, Max. I want to remind our viewers that you guys can start asking your questions in the comments section on Facebook and on YouTube. And you guys will be able to call in. We'll give you guys a number pretty soon on the screen, so you can call in and share your opinion or ask the panelists any questions. I have 2 more questions for my panelists before we take our break, but go ahead, Max.
Okay, I'll make it a quick point. So in the Atlanta area, 90% of the police force in Atlanta itself is African American. And even this week on Sunday, when I went out to the protest, talking to different people, if you deal with the police, oftentimes these guys are on the edge, like you touch them wrong, they're ready to beat you up and take out all their years of frustration on you. So the reality is, it's so much deeper than that. There's so many things that need to be fixed when it comes to police. I don't even know where to start. Yes, psychological evaluation, that is huge. Make sure you're not trying to come on the force because you used to be bullied. That's big. But let's get to the root of the problem. Racism is one of the biggest issues. Because I'm going to tell you straight up, implicit and direct racism, implicit bias is huge, because even if you encounter African American, Hispanic, your own people, sometimes these people are just rough. Like I remember one time I had a person that ding my door when I was working by the airport, and it escalated, and we ended up calling the police. So this person, he had a big SUV parked next to my car. There's a woman that was talking to her. She opened the door and it scratched my car. She was like, "Oops," and she kept having a conversation. And I'm thinking, like, wait a second, you just scratched my car. How you just gonna go back to a conversation? And I was gonna let it go, but you can't just let it go, especially at the time I had a rental. And so she made it like it's not a big deal. And I'm like, yo, you scratched up my car. This is a rental. This is a problem. And the guy was like, hold up, you look like you're going to beat her up. And he felt the need to come out his car and come between us like, oh, why are you looking at her like that? You going to beat her up? And I'm like, where did you come from? So it escalated, it waited, and it got to the point where I had to call the police. When the police came, he was a brother. The first thing the other dude said is, oh, he looked like he was going to hit her. And I'm sitting, because he's sitting right here, the cop is here, the other dude's here, and I just lightly touched the cop's arm, and I was like, this dude is lying. And he was like, whoa, you want me to, don't touch me, you want me to arrest you? So
Wow.
there's a certain way that they police our communities that are totally different. I'll tell you this straight up. If you go to Upper East Side Manhattan, if you go to Buckhead, if you go to a certain area, they are a lot more patient. They're a lot more kind. And I've seen videos, I've posted videos on this for years because I love to show this hypocrisy where these police officers are running into some Caucasian lady who you can tell she comes from whatever money, driving Mercedes Benz. She's saying every word in the book. And he's like, well, ma'am, okay, well, ma'am, is this. So most of the time they treat Caucasian people a certain way, especially the Caucasian people in rich areas, and not the brothers and sisters in those areas, because we all know they could be driving a Lambo, a Murcielago, whatever. They're still gonna get pulled over. But they treat certain people with more implicit bias, or they treat certain people nicer than even our own in our community. So yes, it does help when you have people that are mixed into the community, but we need to address the implicit bias and all the racist factors that occur when they treat us a lot harsher than other races, especially from race to economic level as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I have a question for you, Vernique. So a lot of school districts and universities now are cutting all ties with police departments, right? Do you think that this is necessary, and how is this really helping the kids or student bodies?
Well, I have been seeing that. I think for me, like, there are private-owned security companies. So, the students will always be protected as long as they put the appropriate security in place. And I do think that's very important. But their security, especially the type of security that's provided on college campuses, it can be done by a private-owned company, right? These companies also can be licensed to carry, and they have certain things that they can do, right, within the law. I honestly think like that's extra money into their pockets. And though with the question earlier, I don't agree with the police being defunded, though they can stand to lose a little bit, right? They can stand to be to have decrease in funding, especially the LAPD and NYPD, who gets a lot of money to be, to do what they do. But overall, not individually as police officers, because police officers truthfully don't make a heck of a whole lot. But at least in my area, they don't. But I think that those are private contracts between the police and these universities. And so, I mean, if that's what they feel like they should do, and if that's going to send a message, I don't necessarily see a problem, as long as the students are still protected, right? They still need to be able to have a forum to voice concerns, issues, threats, attacks, etc. So as long as they're replacing them with maybe private-owned security companies, I don't see a problem.
Okay. And so the last question I have is for you, Rose, before we go. Sorry, sorry, man. So, Rose, the question I have for you is, you guys remember the whole issue with Amy Cooper at the park, Central Park?
Yeah.
Do you guys really think that there should be consequences for false reporting?
Absolutely.
500%, 500,000% yes.
All day.
Honestly, I am tired. Well, I am exhausted with white women, okay? And white women are using themselves as a way to weaponize our black men and women, okay? And this is not new, okay? We saw it with Emmett Till, and we are seeing it right now in 2020. And I have no empathy I have no sympathy for any white woman who thinks that if you see a black man in any public space that you feel threatened, then maybe you need to look in the mirror and see where the problem is stemming from, because it most likely is not from a brother or a sister. You inherited it somewhere and you need to figure it out.
Yep.
She just told them.
All right, Yvonne, go ahead. So we'll go to Yvonne and then you, Juliet.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, there needs to be a consequence, because I feel like these women, they do this, and for them, they can carry on and they can go have lunch and carry on with their day, wake up tomorrow morning. But for us, the consequences that we face when a call like this is placed, you're taken out to the police station. There may be a police report. Then it may be on your record. Like, our life isn't the same the next day. So I feel like, as she said, there needs to be a consequence that is put in place for people who do something like this, because you can't. It's inappropriate. It's unfair, and you're also, like she said, weaponizing black and white men. And I feel there needs to be a right. So moving forward, if say Karen sees that, I can't just jump on the phone and call and say so and so is making me feel threatened, then Christy, who may have seen this and witnessed this, won't engage in the same act, because she knows that there'll be a consequence. You can't just carry on in that manner.
And also, Ted, when a white person or white woman in particular decides to do such a thing, they already have their intention aligned. They know what the end results are, and they know what they want out of it. So no, nobody should have any empathy or sympathy for any white woman who loses their job, knowing darn well that if they call the police on any black person, this is how it will end. It will end in, Tamir Rice. It will end in George, in Floyd. It will end in Sandra Bland. This is the end of it. And no sympathy for any of them.
Yeah, we're in a day and age where, I'm sorry.
No, I was just. Go ahead.
This is so hard, because it's like I can't tell who's talking. I don't know. There's like a gap.
Go ahead.
We're in a day and age too where it's evident what happens to a black man when this happens. So if your intent is for a man to be harmed at that gravity, then absolutely, there's no way you can carry on that way. I feel like men are being gunned down, shot down. They have skills in their pocket. That's the only thing they have on them. And their lives are being taken simply off of a phone call. And how dangerous that phone call can be, it has to be stopped.
Yep.
I'm going to just say, I'm going to get my energy out really quick. I think what gave me chills was that Amy Cooper had a full-blown anxiety attack while she was on the phone with the police officer. I repeat, it was a full-blown hyperventilating, like to the point she didn't even realize she was strangling her dog. Now, let's go back to Georgia. They called the cops, right? And they were just following store policy, right? These were store owners. They saw a count bill. They're like, you know what? It's store policy. We're going to call the cops just to de-escalate or to figure out what went wrong. Okay? And look what happened to George Floyd. Imagine what happens with a white woman having a full-blown anxiety attack for someone who is harmed. Like, nothing's happened to her. Nothing's happened, right? You know those babies that cry and they wail, and the moment you say, wow, there's no tears coming out this baby's eyes, and that's when the first tear comes out. That was this white woman, where she was calm, and all of a sudden, she flipped out. And once again, I go back to slavery, right? Where white women, I read an article that said that white women, they drove this economy of slavery because they could flirt with a black man, they could come on to a black man. However, they still had their white husband wrapped around their finger. And so in a split second, they could get that black man killed. And that's unfortunately a mentality. That's what got Emmett Till killed. Even with the Central Park Five, they just needed to find black men to protect this white woman, right? This happens over and over and over. So should she face the consequences for that? Absolutely. Because if it were me and I was in real danger, then they would say, oh, well, she's being dramatic. That's just an angry black woman, right? But for a white woman, all of a sudden, who has a full-blown anxiety attack, and like not even the wind is hitting her, right? Not even the wind. A full-blown anxiety attack saying someone's threatening her life, and the only thing that happens, she loses her job and she loses her dog. No, she has to face legal consequences, because once again, if George Floyd would get killed over a $20 bill, imagine what could happen if he was actually being a threat, or if she called the cops on George Floyd being a threat to her.
Not only that, she's wasting money.
Oscar.
Mad money.
Very good point, guys.
Give that lady an Oscar.
Can I say something real quick, though?
Go ahead.
Can I say something real quick? You know, this actually reminds me of the story of Joseph and Potiphar's wife, and that weird correlation with how, and I don't know how to explain it, but it's just that correlation of like someone pretending to be in trouble. It's almost like crying wolf, pretending to be in trouble. And then, you know, if it wasn't for him filming that man probably would have gone to jail.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
These type of situations should send a message to white women saying, listen, we're tired of you lying on us. We're tired of you making us out to seem like we're rapists and all these type of things. So I think that not only should she get charged, but she should be publicly embarrassed for the rest of her life. I'm taking it that far.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And don't come back and say
thank
sorry
you
after
guys. We have to take our break. Guys. I want to remind the audience that when we come back from our break, you'll be able to call in and ask your questions. So the panelists will be answering questions after our break. Thank you for watching Drop Mic. We'll be back. All right, and we're back, everyone, and I think we have a caller on the line. Hello? Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I have a question and also I have a comment. My question as a mom, raising a young black man, a boy in this country. After what we see and witnessing at this moment, I want to know what exactly can I tell my son now, because you comply, you get in trouble, you home, you still end up dying, you fight, you die, I don't know exactly what to tell a young boy growing up in this country. He has to comply with the police system. And I am a wife of a policeman, and I'm trying to understand what to do, what to say. Because my husband is a police officer, and I know he went through a great deal of before he get hired, and they did not want to hire him in his county where we currently live in because they feel like it will be some affiliate and they will know the community too well. He ended up finding a job 60 miles away from home.
Wow.
Wow.
So there is also all those things that's going on in the police force. Like they don't want to hire people in the community. They want to hire people far away that don't really know the community. You guys spoke about it, and I think that was a great point. And that's something a lot of police officers have to travel a great deal to go to work and to get to know that new community they're working in. But my question as a mom raising kids in this country, what exactly do we tell them? What kind of conversation are we going to have now? Because you nice, you comply, you don't comply, you still get abused in different shape of form.
Does your son know that your husband is a police officer? Can she hear me?
I'm not sure if she can hear you.
I guess not.
But go ahead, guys. If you guys have an element of answer.
So,
I'm sitting
Yeah, can you hear? Because someone had a question for you. Can you hear us,
I heard
ma'am?
her.
I think she's still on the line.
I think she's still
Okay,
on the
so
line.
all right. So can you want to? All right. So let me just say a couple of things here, especially as a young African Haitian melanated brother.
Yes, I'm still here.
All
I
right.
can hear.
Oh, Juliet had a question for you, actually.
Is your son aware that your husband or that his father is a police officer?
Yes, I'm still here. I can hear.
Does he know that his father is a police officer? She's
Yes,
listening to
he
the
is.
question.
Yeah.
What has
anyway.
what kind of conversation have they had?
And yeah.
Yes, he does.
Okay. So, what does the father suggest as far as this conversation and how to comply, or?
Yeah, whatever his recommendations. Or what does he
There's
say?
a delay because she's listening
Yeah,
to
I'm
it.
not sure
There's
if
a
she
delay.
can hear us, but go ahead, guys.
Let me just say this. So this week I put out pretty much a breakdown that if you have an iPhone, you can tell Siri, I'm being pulled over, and it automatically triggers a series of things where it records with your front camera exactly what's happening.
Really?
It sends the camera feed to whoever you suggest it goes to, and it stores it in a cloud. So even if they destroy your phone,
Wow.
all that is being recorded. So if you have an iPhone, hopefully teach your son to use that method, and whenever you get pulled over, utilize that method. That's the first thing. The second thing is this. I have mixed feelings about how to handle it because I've gone through it myself. So oftentimes I hear our own people say, "Oh, you just need to comply. Learn to comply and be quiet." Well, no, Caucasian people, they don't comply. They steal the cars, they run cops over, they'll pull guns, and they get to talk about it. I want an equal level playing field. I'm sorry, I don't want to just have to say yes, sir, master, and I'm just going to sit here quiet while Joe over there just lives his life and can talk back to the cop however he wants to. So what I'll say is this. Know your rights, first of all. Go over the rights, especially in your area, with your child. Understand something. Don't escalate. Don't make it worse, but don't put down and don't back down either. So in other words, the first thing to tell you is don't answer questions. Period. So do the basics. Yes, sir. A police officer, whatever you want to call them, brother, sir, whatever you want to call them. Stand firm on your rights. Don't be disrespectful. But if the police officer is asking you for something that's not legal, make sure they're aware of those rights so that they can they can't infringe on their rights. So in other words, if you're just walking down the street and he says, "Hey, let me get your name," for what? May I ask you why you pulled me over? So if they're asking for your license, why do you need? Have I committed a crime? Am I under? How do they say it? Not arrest. There's
Am I
another.
being detained?
Am I being
Detained.
detained? Thank
Am I
you.
Am I
being
Yes,
being
you
detained?
guys are a bunch of
detained?
smart
Detained.
people. I like y'all. Am I being detained? You gotta go over all those basics so they know how to handle every situation. Like I said, be strong, be firm, but don't ever, don't overdo it. Don't start looking at them say, "You must have been hurt. You must have been hurt as a kid, huh? You look like a punk." Like, take that badge off. We're gonna go at it. All that extra stuff
Yeah.
is not gonna help. So just know the rules, know your rights, use your camera, stand firm, and pray. God, you gotta pray
I think we
because
have
only
another
God
caller,
is gonna
guys.
bring your kids through some situations.
I think we have another caller, guys.
Okay.
Hello?
Hey, hello, this is Teresa speaking.
Hey.
Are you able to
How
hear
are you?
me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm okay, and you? Okay, so
Good.
I have a question. I'm answering the question from the live chat. So the question is, how do we encourage our young people to choose career paths that are impactful in the Black community? But I want to speak more so in the Haitian community. I feel like that starts in the home. And in the diaspora Haitian community, we come here, but I feel like one thing that we fail to do is to really learn the history of Black people in America. We've known the Haitian history, and sometimes we can even spell that verbatim if we live in Haiti, and or parents of Haitian Americans that live here. But because we've gotten so used to being independent, being an independent Black country, we forgot the hurdle and what the Black African Americans had to go through. And that is something that we're missing on our end if we're raising African Americans, because whenever they go outside in the world, they're viewed as Black people. It is on our end as parents to educate, to not only go learn the history of Black people in America, to be able to be compassionate, because oftentimes we, in that community, we misunderstand these African Americans. Sometimes we view them as, I know for a fact in high school, some of them were viewed like sometimes as ghetto or lazy, to say the least. But it's because they're often misunderstood. It's because we didn't take the time to learn that history. I feel like this situation has awoken the Haitian community to do our part to learn that history, so we can raise subconscious young people that will feel compelled enough to be impactful in that community that they belong to. Because we're being raised in a Haitian diaspora community, you feel like you're Haitian. These kids are Americans. They're interacting with Black Americans, but they don't know what it really means. And if that education starts home, I feel like it will be even more impactful, because they know their rights. They know exactly their history. They're able to have intelligent conversation that could translate into career paths that will be impactful to not only the Haitian community, but Black people in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good
that's
point,
my
sis.
2 cents
Thank
for
you for
tonight.
calling.
I want to add to what she
Thank
said
you.
really quick.
No problem.
And one second, guys. So we have 4 callers on the line, guys. So we're gonna take them, and then we'll address their questions. I'm gonna take notes. If they're asking questions, I'll write it down and then I'll send them through. All right, guys?
Okay.
Let's take the next caller. Hello?
Yes, this is Gabriel from Queens.
Hey, Gabriel.
Earlier this week, I was looking on someone's Facebook, and they said that there is a disconnect between brothers and sisters that are from the Caribbean and brothers and sisters that are born here in the U.S.
True.
Said that, there's some Caribbean people that feel that this is not their Americans have done here in the U.S. And I was actually saddened because I never thought that, you know, there would be that perspective, because in church, you know, it's you got brothers and sisters that are African American, people from Guyana, Jamaica, Haiti, all these different places. So you would think that everybody would be on the same page, you know. But I was shocked, and I didn't know that this is something that, you know, I know that there is a disconnect between brothers and sisters from Africa, and when they come here to the U.S., they look down upon us. So I'm wondering, how do they see police brutality in the U.S. then? Because now it's not a thing of, okay, we're divided. You know, it's a thing now that, okay, we're all brothers and sisters. We have to target this, no matter what your ethnicity is, no matter which part of the world that you come from. But I just want to say that because it's something that it's been on my mind for the last couple of days. There are some people that are for the protest and what's going on, and I'm not for the looting. You know, I'm for protesting as long as it's done peacefully, but I understand the anger of the people. I understand that everyone is tired of what's going on. We constantly have these rallies, and it feels as if nothing is happening, you know? But at the end of the day, we must continue to educate our brothers and sisters, even those that feel that this is not their fight. The thing is that it's something for all of us to get involved in. We all have to speak, you know, but that's all I really want to say.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Gabriel. We'll take the next caller, guys. I wrote down the question. Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
Pretty good, and you?
Hello. Oh, good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Hi, how you doing? I'm Maurice. Am I online? Am I live?
Yes, you can ask your question.
All right, first off, I want to say a shout out to my boy Max there. I see you representing. Good luck. See you, man. Second, I want to ask about what are some ideas, I guess, of the best way for us as a Black community to officially organize, because I realize organization is probably one of the biggest failings that we have in order to be able to actually push forward with any agenda that we may have in regard to changing policies or changing laws or changing anything, or even strengthening our base. Yeah, I mean that's basically my question.
Excellent question.
Thank you, Morris, for calling. And we'll go to the next caller. Hello. Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me, sir?
If you can do me, yes, I can hear you, but if you can do me a favor and put that volume down in the background, please.
Okay. How's that, sir?
Yeah, pretty good. All right, go ahead.
All right, so my addition to what y'all discussing is we need to come together as Black people. We need to be together. We need to notice that the system is not meant for us. You know, we need to stop all this unnecessary breaking up of the Black family. We need to stick together. We actually need to stay away from things that are divisive in the Black community, like all the divorce code, the child support code. We actually need to solve our problems of the Black community, because every time you try to break down a brother, they're gonna end up. What happens when a brother doesn't take off? Well, they go to court, they go to jail, they lose a driver license, they lose their a professional license, and then you have a black brother that can't provide for the family, and that's the last thing you want, because if we kill each other, if we are actually putting each other down by, taking each other to court. My brother can't work. A brother is scared to work because he's going to lose all his money. And that's how we break each other. We actually need to realize that we have to take this fight, that's going on between us. As much as we are saying we want to bring everybody involved and bring our grievances, but we also need to realize that the things we're doing to break each other down, like I'm saying, the codes and all these things, can we solve problems between each other? Can we actually try to live in peace with each other? If you realize all these other communities, like the Chinese, they have the Chinese community, they have Mexicans, they all together. But black people, we always have to bring each other. How can we bring each other together and be successful as a society? That's the main thing here. We actually need to grow each other, stop breaking each other down. That's my.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much for your point. And I think we have one last caller. Oh, okay. So no more calls, guys. So back to you guys. So the first question, I believe they ask, how do our African or Caribbean brothers and sisters, I guess, see police brutality, since there's a disconnect, or since they look down upon the African American community here? What do you guys think?
Can I speak?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if we were all muted. I guess so. There's a lot that I heard in this question being asked, right? Because as a Haitian American, we're told that those people are Black American. There's like a whole vibe that follows that saying, right? Or you acting like a Black American. Right. You get it. So we've always been like in our mind trained that like we are more than, or we are higher, or act higher than, because we're Haitian and they're Black American. I was actually having a conversation with my friend who's Nigerian. Same idea. Nigerians come to the United States, and so a lot of Nigerians are coming from money. So they come to the U.S. and they're like, you don't know where I'm coming from. You don't know what I have back at home. So they also walk as if they're also better than, right? And I think that's kind of where that disconnect happens, or that disconnect is kind of been heard of because of how we're raised and how we're taught to view those who are from this country. So I think for me, I even had that mentality for a very long time until I educated myself and I taught myself, Black American culture. And it took me to go ahead and see, all right, what I know what Haitians have been through, but I need to understand what like African Americans here have been through. So I had to do my own research. So I think that's kind of where that disconnect kind of broke off. But how do we feel about police brutality? At the end of the day, they look at my skin and I'm still Black. It doesn't matter. They don't know that I'm Haitian. They don't know that I'm Nigerian. You know what I mean? So when they see me, they still see a Black person. So I can still be brutalized just like a Black American. Like there's nothing that's going to stop a police officer from hurting me the same way he would hurt someone else who is African American. So I don't think to me there is no disconnect as far as how we see police brutality, because we can all be brutalized. I mean, like I said, they look at us and they still see a Black man. It doesn't matter how much money's in my pocket. It don't matter what I have running through my veins. That they can't see that. So I don't think there's a disconnect there in particular.
I would like to piggyback on that, and just
go ahead.
sorry, I want to piggyback on that. I think the disconnect is more identity, right? And this goes back, I think it was the second caller who spoke about, us really educating our young people so that they want to make a difference. We have to also think about how we were educated. I grew up in the education system within the United States. And so what I learned is that there were Native Americans in just some place. They just existed. They, Cherokees and Algonquins, and they lived in their teepee houses and their canoe boats and stuff. And then all of a sudden, another story comes along where this man named Christopher Columbus discovered land, just found this land, and it was this great discovery. And then, there was colonization, and there was indigo and rice crops and this, and there was slavery. And then we fought for slavery to be over. So, but we don't learn that Haiti led the first successful slave rebellion. We don't learn about the fact that there was a Jamaican man who actually helped start that first slave rebellion. We don't learn that Haitians also fought in the American Civil War. We don't learn about that. We don't even know where we came from in Africa, right? We know it's West Africa, but we don't know where we came from. And so based on the narrative that we're being told, everybody's given this different story, but we really don't know how we all come together. We also don't know that Asians originally were Black. They were originally with melanin. The movement of the tectonic plates, of course, has those who are more fair-skinned versus those who have, a darker hue in Southeast Asia. But we don't learn that. And so look at Hispanics, right? I saw things trending on Instagram and Twitter this week about Dominicans trying to separate themselves from Haitians. The reality of the situation is there would be no Dominican Republicans if there would be no Dominican Republic if Haiti did not fight for freedom and then the island split in two. So once again, everybody's kind of disconnected. But the one thing we keep forgetting when we go back to police brutality is that we're all oppressed, right? They've rounded up Asians and put them in concentration camps, right? You have Hispanics that also deal with economic depression. You have Jewish people even, and they're white, and they were targets. Everybody is a target. Middle Easterns are a target. They refer to them as terrorists. But for some reason, we're all given history based on a narrative, I think, that fits our environment, unfortunately, and it doesn't bring us together. And so when it comes to us viewing ourselves, for example, Black American, I grew up learning about that too. When someone calls me Black, I tell them, no, I'm Haitian. Because when they say Black, for me, it's not a skin color. It's more of an ethnicity thing, African American. But I'm African Haitian American. And that's kind of, it took education for me as well to see Black is Black is Black. No matter how much I scratch the skin, it might get ashy, but it's still going to be Black, right? So I think there's an opportunity for us to really maybe rewrite the narrative and show how we are basically all the same. We all have a history that's all entangled together. We are all connected in some way. When it came to our ancestors, it was all our ancestors fighting together for the same cause. Nobody was trying to do their own thing because everybody knew that we were slaves and we had the same goal. So I think the disconnect, yes, it's more of an identity thing, but now it's up to us to rewrite that story and connect all the pieces of the puzzle together.
All right, thank you, Juliet. And I think the next question was about some ideas or suggestions for best ways for us as a Black community to organize. And I want Vernique and Raymond to answer that question for me, please.
So I know for me personally, I've been having that same dialogue on my platform and with people who follow me and things like that. And I've been in contact with other platforms and other people that I know who have influence to see what is our position, right? So I think the first thing that we need to do is everybody who has any level of influence, anybody who has any level of power, no matter how small, is we need to first examine and see, just like in the Bible, I think it was Moses, where God told him to look at his hands, right? Look at your hands and see what it is that you're going to use, what tools God has given you, what gifts and talents, abilities, access, finances, whatever it is that you have access to in order to join in the fight. For me personally, being a licensed master social worker, I am a trained therapist. So for me, I may not be the one. And I was just on a panel earlier this week, and somebody mentioned being everybody operating in their lane, and I think that's important, right? If I don't protest or if I don't cry aloud the same way that you do, it doesn't mean that I'm not effective. The Bible says some water, some plant, but it's God who ultimately gives the increase. So for me, it may not look like I'm doing much, but I am over a community of people where I have held safe space for them, and am continuing to plan efforts and things like that in order to deal with the psyche of this thing. This has affected everyone. Again, I've never met George Floyd, but I've mourned for him, even today, just in tears. And so I'm holding space, and I'm using what God has put in my hands. And I think that that's the first thing that you do. Everybody examine what ability, what power do I have? The other thing too is to get involved politically in some way, shape, or form. Politics is not my favorite thing in the world, but it's important, right? And so if you do nothing else but get informed and then inform other people or draw other people in to get informed, you're doing a lot more than just, maintaining the status quo. So I think those are the two important things: looking at what you have access to, what you can do, what skills and things that you have in your hands to affect your community in whatever big or small way. And then the second thing is to actually get involved, whether as a voter, as an activist, as a lobbyist, whatever the case may be, in local and national politics.
Oh, thank you very much. And what are your thoughts, Raymond?
I'm gonna make a swing on this. I think first, Black men and women have to acknowledge that we're both hurt on both sides. I think that because a lot of times we have been hurt by other people, whether it be in our present and our past, it creates a wall between two sides. So I think that one, Black men and women just have to acknowledge, hey, I'm hurt or I'm hurting. How can I move forward, or what can I do to make a change to help the community? Because a lot of times what happens is we have this unspoken competition between the both of us. Like, there are a lot of Black women who are influencers. That's great. A lot of Black men who are influencers. That's great. There comes this competition of, well, I have more money than you. I have more followers than you. I know more people than you. I have more connects than you. So it's like those powers that we have to bring people to our personal platforms, I think that we should use those powers that we have to create this community where we can help each other, where if you're weak in something and I'm strong in something, okay, let's build, let's work. The SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Let's have this fortress where no outsiders can come in. I think the second thing that we do that shoots ourselves in the foot is we worry too much about what other people are doing. Like, we compare ourselves to like Asians, or like we compare ourselves to like the Latinos. Oh, look at this community. Okay, well, they have this. Why can't I have that? Or like we worry about I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. We worry about too many coons, basically, like people who try to pander to white people, Black people who try to pander to white people too much, or the people who are like overly flashy, or the people who are just like out there so much. Like we look at those things. Jamaicans have this saying, it's called follow fashion monkey. That's what they call it. So we do that thing where it's like we're looking at people and just like, oh, well, I want this, so why can't I have that? I think that once we get rid of that jealousy, once we get rid of that pride, once we start the mental health process of therapy, I think that's very important for all of us. Once we start that process, then we can come together and be like, okay, this is what we need to do. And the third thing is we have way too many leaders or aspiring leaders with no direction. That's something that's really getting at us, because like, okay, I'm a leader, but where are you going? Where are you leading us to? What's the end goal here? Nobody has an end goal. It seems like it's all about self, but not about the community.
And I just want to say too, ultimately, it's not our job to we can't free ourselves, right? And so we need allies. So it's not like we can be as organized as we want until those in power actually choose to hear us and make the necessary changes, we can. And so our biggest job is to actually invest back in ourselves and to provide resources back to our community, because we can't make systemic change without those in power. So I think sometimes we have to remember that as well. Like we can't free ourselves.
Definitely, great point. I think we have a caller, guys. One moment, Max. Hello. Can you hear us?
Yes.
If you could please put the volume down, that'll help.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
What am I doing?
You can ask your question.
Oh, but it's not on the live broadcast.
Yes, you're live right now. Hello.
Oh yeah.
Can you hear me? All right, so we'll go to you guys. So I have a question for you, Max and Rose. Someone asked on Facebook, do you guys think police precincts need military-grade weapons? Go ahead, Max, and then Rose.
Quick question. Did we answer all the questions that were covered from the last 4 callers?
Yes. Because one of them was just giving us ideas on, the disconnect between both communities.
Okay. So, and we covered Maurice's question as well?
Yes.
Maurice's question.
I think Veronique and Raymond just addressed it. It was about how do we organize as a Black community?
Okay. All right. The one thing I wanted to say about the militarizing the police, that's the wrong way to go. We don't need any more scare tactics in our community. We need better relations. We need to understand one another better, and we need to build a bridge, not set up a tunnel or a moat with a whole bunch of alligators and crocodiles and things underneath. So, no, that's not going to help. The whole mindset of militarizing the police is the same thing that happens right now, where as soon as a police officer comes across someone who dares to ask them, "Why are you stopping me?" or anything like that, they feel disrespected and they feel like they want to smack you up. We definitely have to get away from that. And I don't know if it was Kamala Harris, but some people are trying to put out laws to stop that process, because at the moment, old weapons of the Army are passed down to police precincts around America, and that definitely has to stop. It doesn't help. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed. I just reposted that video a month ago when people were trying to, when people were protesting because they wanted their lattes, barber, and be able to get their nails done. These people were literally bringing guns. They were in police officers' face. I posted a video today where these people were shoving, pushing, yelling at the cops. There was no taser, no shield, no guns, no rubber bullets, nothing militarized. So there's one way to police their community, but as soon as the topic at hand has to do with the Afro community, right away they have the big guns. It's a problem.
They see us as
Thank you, Max. And right before we go to you, Rose, I think we have a caller on the line. Hello.
Hello, how you doing? Hello, how you doing? This is Maurice from the
well, thank you.
I'm calling. Hey, yeah, thank you. I'm calling in regard to. I'm sorry, I don't know the sister's name. She's the one on my screen in the bottom middle. She had something along the lines of how we weren't able to like make these changes alone, and we needed the people in power to be able to, you know, facilitate these changes. I mean, I would like to respectfully disagree, as I believe we as Black people have enough people in power as it is to make enough changes. And if anything, we have our power to be able to vote. We have our power of our consumership. And being Black people, we're probably number one consumers in the entire United States. There's so much that we can do and change and manipulate in order to be able to get the changes that we're looking for. We don't have to sit and wait or ask or beg or plead for things that we need. We can make the decisions, we can make the actions that is going to facilitate the changes that we need.
Thank you, Maurice. And I'll let you
no
answer,
problem.
Vernique.
Yeah, so what I'm not saying is that we should sit idly by. I think that, but we have to understand that we are operating within a system that like promotes white supremacy and that promotes the white agenda. Like if we had as much power as you're saying that we do, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? Our voices would just be heard, and there would be no need for a live, there would be no need for a panel. But the reality of the matter is, yes, we have made great advancements, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't organize and protest. I'm saying the opposite of that. We should do that, but we shouldn't forget to invest back into our own communities, because whether the change comes a year from now or 10 years from now, we still need to be okay in the process. And so I'm not saying that we should sit and wait for our saviors to come get us, but I am saying that we live in a system and we operate within a system that caters to whiteness, especially white maleness. And so, I mean, that's just the reality of it. And it's going to take, like, we have a racist president right now. How do we think that happened? Right? Like, and yes, and part of that is, you know, we don't take, especially the Black community by and large doesn't vote as much as we should and things like that. But we have to look at why. You know, we've been disenfranchised, especially from the voting process, since we were able to vote as a people. And so, like, there are so many systems in place that have been in place due to white men, and that's why we are the way we are and where we are. And so, again, like, I think that we should organize and we should do those things, but we also need to make sure that we're in our communities and not waiting on a change that may take God knows how long to come for us to better ourselves.
Thank you, Vernique. And I think we'll take one more answer from Rose, and then we have to end, guys.
Yeah, in terms of you know, receiving military equipment into law enforcement agencies, we already know the answers, right? When we have data and we don't even need to look at data. When we look at disadvantaged communities, we see that those communities are the ones that are experiencing more excessive force from policemen and women, right? So that's to say that in counties where police forces receive more military equipment, so we already know that we will have more police killings. And where will that happen? And in communities where people can't fight back, and communities where people don't have a voice, and communities where you'll find that it's especially in immigrant, you know, communities where people can't, you know, don't even speak the English language well to defend themselves, let alone knowing their rights. So, so it's, you know, we already know the answer to that. And you'll definitely not see this in a, you know, white neighborhood. And if you go to white neighborhoods, this is where community policing happens. It doesn't happen in Black neighborhoods. It doesn't happen in, you know, minority neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods, but it's the truth. So, you know, It's not a good idea. It never will be a good idea. And we can see from these past few days what's happening with people protesting and asking for answers and asking for change, and what's happening. So I don't think this will resolve any issues more.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank all of our panelists tonight for their time, for their opinions. I want to thank our audience and our guests for calling in, for their questions. Thank you for tuning in, guys. We invite you guys to join us again on Friday. We'll be discussing a different topic, and tune in on Wednesday for a Wednesday drop. This is where we reveal the upcoming topic. Once again, this was Ted Wigis. You are watching Drop Mic. Have a good night.